Hello everyone! I had an awesome time in Belgrade meeting David Lada, but it's time to get back to our Bobby Fischer series. This is round number 6. Fischer has the black pieces and he faces his old rival Samuel Reshevsky. Now, some of you may know, some of you may not know, Fischer and Reshevsky have been battling it out for the past 10 years. Their match in 1961 was pretty famous, as it's the first time after Bobby he was the United States champion, and they organized a match. The prize fund was $6,000. So some of the stronger grandmasters in the world, like Tigran Petrosian, Ben Larsen, Svetozar Gligoric, all of them foretold that Reshevsky would win this match. But in the end, the match was cancelled due to Bobby Fischer again not being cool with the playing schedule. There was this one game where it was supposed to be played in the afternoon, and then they switched it to 11 a.m. and then Bobby said he will not play. He didn't come for the game. And then the win was awarded to Samuel Reshevsky. But even before the match got cancelled, the score was 2 wins each and 7 draws. So it was quite an interesting match, and although we don't have any photos of this matchup in 1970 in Palma de Mallorca Interzonal tournament, we do have a couple of photos of their matchup in 1961. So there you have it, Fischer versus Reshevsky. We have quite a lot of photos of this matchup, actually. There they are. Here, a nice close-up with a huge ashtray on the left. Those were the days when you could still smoke during a chess game. And here, another really close-up with a slightly smaller ashtray. So yeah, that being said, let's see how they play now. This is nine years after their matchup in 1961, and although Samuel Reshevsky is still a very strong player, Bobby Fischer, made more progress in these 9 years than Reshevsky has. So let's see the game. Reshevsky opens with d4. We have knight to f6, c4, and c5. Fischer drew the first game, then he's now on a winning streak. He won the next 4 games, and now this is game number 6. Can he continue the winning streak? Let's see. For this game, Fischer chooses the Benoni defense, and Reshevsky doesn't want to go for the main line. He doesn't go for d5, grabbing more space. Rather, he goes knight to f3, transposing into the English. Basically, this is the anti-Benoni. C captures on d4, knight captures, and e6. Knight to c3, and Fischer immediately goes for bishop to b4. E3, and now knight to e4. Fischer moves the same piece twice in the opening, but he does so with ideas of exchanging pieces. Now, white can block here with the bishop, but then Fischer would really be allowed to exchange a lot of pieces. So instead, queen to c2, which allows Fischer to only exchange one piece. So Fischer plays knight captures on c3, b captures on c3, now attacking the bishop, and bishop to e7. So what is the result now from this knight e4 capturing on c3 idea? Fischer now has a better pawn structure. You can see that white's pawn structure is a bit ruined, but okay, in return the white will get a semi-open b file, and the lines of attack will favor white. So both of these positions are nice. It depends on what you prefer here. Bishop to e2, we have castles by Fischer, castles by Reshevsky, and now a6. We have f4, Fischer goes for d6, and here we have f5. A very nice idea by Reshevsky, although you could prepare it. You could start by rook b1, simply keep developing. E4 is also an idea to prepare f5, but Reshevsky doesn't wait, he immediately pushes f5. And although pushing here e5 does seem like an automatic, why not? Fischer doesn't go for it. Fischer actually captures on e5. E captures on f5, knight captures on f5, and now bishop captures on f5. Attacking the queen, queen captures on f5, and now knight to d7. Fischer prepares to bring the other knight to f6. We have bishop to f3, now attacking the b7 pawn, and now comes queen to c7, defending. Rook to b1, and although Fischer can grab the doubled c pawn, the doubled c pawn will always be a weakness. First you have to protect the b pawn. Rook 8 to b8, and now comes bishop to d5. Fischer goes knight to f6, and now comes bishop to a3. And here, rook f to e8. Okay, rook f to e8 does seem kind of dangerous because the bishop is eyeing f7, the queen and rook both x-raying f7 if the knight moves. But Fischer's idea is to bring the bishop over to f8, and then from f8 the bishop will nicely defend the g7 pawn, the d6 pawn, and the queen will still be guarding f7. So queen back to d3, because after the bishop comes to f8 the rook will be attacking the e3 pawn, so queen nicely goes back to defend it. We have knight captures on d5. Fischer undoubles Reshevsky's weak c pawn, but in return he gets b5. b5, a very nice move, stopping this pawn on c3. Now it will remain a backwards pawn, and it will become a weakness that Reshevsky will definitely have to think about. We have e4. Bishop to f8 now. Fischer will now prepare his attack on the e4 pawn, or maybe on the c3 pawn, depending on what Reshevsky plays. Reshevsky plays rook to b4, so he's guarding the e4 pawn, but also preparing the advance of his c pawn. So Fischer now transfers his attack against the e pawn. Rook to e5, we have c4, and now comes rook b to e8. Doubling up on the e file. C captures on b5, A captures on b5, and now king to h1. A very nice move by Reshevsky. It's very dangerous to keep the king here on g1, because even if you decide to give up your e pawn for this pawn, you can't really do it effectively, because queen a7 check, in some variations, could pick up the undefended bishop here on a3. So, you know, you don't want to allow such things. Better play king h1. You know, all is well with the position. Better do it immediately. Queen to e7, now creating this rook-queen, rook battery on the e-file. Queen captures on b5, rook captures on e4, rook captures on e4, queen captures on e4, and queen to d7. And this is the critical moment of the game. Here, the d6 pawn is under attack by the bishop from a3 and by the queen, and Reshevsky probably thought that this is a move that maybe Fischer will offer a draw here. What he was expecting was rook to e7, attacking the queen, and after queen captures, now rook back to e8, attacking the queen, and if the queen moves, the bishop here. And after queen g3, let's say bishop captures, queen captures here, and okay, Reshevsky would be left with a passed a pawn, but most likely, I mean, it's a pretty drawn endgame. Surely he thought, you know, either I will win this or it's going to be a draw. But Fischer's next move really did come as a surprise to him. He played queen to f4. And now, as you can see, you know, back rank weakness is definitely a thing. Of course, you cannot capture the queen. Rook captures, then rook e1 would result in checkmate. So, you know, you can't really afford that. And you do have to do something about this rook, as the queen is attacking this rook. The only good defensive move in this position is actually queen to b5. You have to bring the queen back, defend the rook, and then Fischer would move his queen, and the game continues. But fortunately for Fischer, and unfortunately for Samuel Reshevsky, in this position after queen to f4, Reshevsky played king to g1. He defended the rook. Now the queen has to move. Also, the f7 pawn is in grave danger. You can never allow queen captures. So what do you do here? Unfortunately for Reshevsky, king to g1 is a terrible blunder that loses the game immediately. But I will not just tell you how Fischer took advantage of this blunder. Feel free to pause the video here and find the winning idea. So, as usual, I will give it a couple of seconds for you to decide. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations. You have just continued your winning streak in 1970 Palma de Mallorca Interzonal tournament. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, here Bobby played queen to d4 check. It doesn't seem like a terrible miss by Reshevsky, but it actually is. Of course, you can't go rook f2, rook e1 is checkmate, as the rook is now pinned. But the problem is, after queen d4 check, king h1, here queen to f2 was played by Bobby. And it was in this position that Samuel Reshevsky resigned the game. Now, why did he resign? Well, the rook is under attack. And the problem with the previous defense, queen to b5, this doesn't work because now you have rook to e1. And again, white has no moves. Of course, if you capture, queen captures, queen has to block. This will be checkmate. And there's really nothing to do here after queen to f2. You could try queen b5, and then after rook to e1, try something like h3. You know, make some room for the king, but then you will just get checkmated in a different way. And there's really no other option here. Queen to f5 would also be an idea. Maybe instead of queen b5, but then black can simply capture it. And if queen is captured, then again rook e1 check will lead to checkmate. Rook blocks, rook captures, and again it's checkmate. But of course Samuel Reshevsky didn't allow any of this. After this queen to f2 move, he resigned the game, and Bobby Fischer continues his winning streak. So after drawing the first game, now the 5th game in a row that he won, and he's really doing excellently in this tournament. So yeah, it's very funny how things happen in chess. After this queen to d7 move, he thought, okay, he has rook e7, the game is either drawn, or, I'm the one with the outside passed pawn, how does one lose this? But then comes queen to f4, and already on the next move you blunder and lose the game. But such is the way of chess. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and that you're enjoying the coverage of this series so far. I would like to thank Kristaps Murmanis, Ronald Diamond, Steve Ballard, Oscar Silva, and Mario Encinosa for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon with a game from round 7 of the 1970 Palma de Mallorca Interzonal tournament. And as the Biel Chess Festival is starting soon, I might cover, if there will be some interesting games, I will cover both the Fischer series and the Biel Chess Festival simultaneously. So yeah, thank you all, and I will see you soon.